Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
So I got a hand here from 5-10 game.
Okay.
Particular hand is straddled to 20. But that's not every round. So this is just this particular hand.
Okay.
It's 7-handed, and it's about 4,400 effective with the main villain.
Okay.
And the main villain is maniacal, very loose pre, but not your typical like calling everything. He's like 3-betting like any 2 suited cards. He's really like maniacal, and having a horrific session down about 10K at the time. So just for context. So +1, which is middle position, I guess, about 2,100 stack. He limps. He's kind of like a weak type of player. Limps. Hero in hijack with king of clubs, queen of hearts. Raises to 90.
Hero in the hijack, king of hearts, queen of hearts to 90.
King of clubs, queen of hearts.
Oh,
queen off.
King of clubs, queen of hearts. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Raised to 90. Main villain who's on the button, he calls.
Okay.
Straddle, who's basically a donk and like calls everything pre-flop, he calls also, and the limper calls.
All right. So straddle calls and limper calls. So it's 4 ways.
Limper call. It's 4 ways, yeah. And straddle is also pretty deep, 3,400. So the flop, the flop is 375 and comes out Jack of spades, 10 of diamonds, 7 of spades.
Jack of spades, 10 of diamonds, 7 of spades.
7 of spades, right.
Okay.
So we flop an open-ender, but we have no spades.
Right. Okay.
So it quickly gets checked to hero.
Okay.
And so hero bets half pot 187 exactly. And I was my first question was like, should we even be betting this? I mean, obviously that's a like pretty good flop for a hand, but it's 4 ways and like people are not really folding much, and we got this crazy guy behind us. So do you think we should be betting this flop? Like, is it?
I mean, it's probably pretty close. I mean, if you were to listen, I mean, it's. Would you? Like I said, the theory behind this would be maybe you bet this with the spade in your hand. Maybe you check it if you don't. But you're probably not, in theory, supposed to be betting many 4-way pots anyways. And when you do it, it's supposed to be a very, very small sizing, like something stupid like 100 or something like that. I would tend to think that, 2 overcards here and an open-ended straight draw. I think that I probably would bet more often than not because I want to get myself the button. It's going to make the hand more advantageous if we're in position through the rest of the hand because we might be basically allowed to kind of realize our equity. Like if we just sort of check it through and then there's a blank, you're going to get maybe a bet that comes out and then you're in a really tough spot because you're multi-way and you've got to deal with the guy behind you. Whereas if you make a bet here, you have immediate fold equity against better hands, and then you might be able to realize equity with a natural check coming to you on the turn. But I might size down. I might go like 125 to 150, something like that.
Yeah. The problem with sizing down is these guys will check raise with like absolute, garbage just because they'll think that, I got nothing. They'll check raise with a 10.
They'll interpret that as weakness if you bet like 100. Yeah, I mean that could
they'll
be
check raise with 8-10, or
that definitely can be tricky. I remember that from the PKC days when I was playing against Chinese players last year. It's just if you bet anything less than say 30% of pot, you're just going to get raised. And to be honest with you, if you transport yourself back to like the mid 2000s, it would be the same thing. People just didn't bet that small, and when they did, they were weak, so people would just raise them. Okay, so you bet 187.
Yeah, so I ended up betting, but because it's kind of a good flop, and also because I thought that people can have all kinds of total garbage that they can't hold on to. But as I said, fold equity, not a whole lot of fold equity, so I bet on everybody calls.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So now the pot is all of a sudden 11-20, and the turn is deuce of hearts.
Okay.
So it doesn't put anything. It's a brick.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets checked to me again. And at this point, I decided to check because I thought when everybody called me, I think at this point, I don't think I can bet. I don't know. I thought that I have to check now.
I mean, in general, you would think. Here's the thing. What's kind of interesting here is that if you don't think that somebody's sandbagging you, especially if you had bet sort of a little bit on the smaller side and you didn't get raised, which would mean that no one has two pair, then this is one of the biggest bricks in the deck, right? And like if you bet 700 or 800 and the best hand that somebody has is Queen Jack, you might get it through. With that being said, though, still you're betting into three people. I mean, I think that the logical thing would be, yeah, you probably don't fire another barrel. But I have done this against two people though, and you can leverage the guy in the middle quite a bit, right? You know what I mean? If you think that he's calling light, like some guy in the middle, because he's got to worry about the guy behind you. But I think checking's fine. So you check?
Yeah, I checked, and I mean, to be honest with you, like I don't think anybody's folding a jack. Like I know what you're saying, and it would be pretty much crazy to call like with a Queen Jack, but I don't think anybody's folding a Queen Jack. Yeah. Unless like maybe if I like pot it or something, that's a huge bet, then they might, maybe, but that's, So I checked, and the button, who's the main villain and the most kind of maniacal player, he bets now half pot, which is 675.
So the button who's maniacal bets 675. Okay.
Right, and he's so just again to add a little context, he's maniacal pre-flop, but I've noticed. And he's like always three betting like pre-flop, but post-flop he's more, he's gonna like sometimes bet third, but then basically check, go for showdown. So he's not like crazy maniacal. He's capable of crazy bluffs, but he's not that maniacal post-flop. But not folding much either. But he bets half pot, right? And the limper and the straddle and the limper folds, so it folds to me. So button bets half pot 675 folds to me. So at this point I think that's a pretty easy call because basically I'm getting the odds, right?
Well, so by the way, who did you say was stuck? Did you say somebody was stuck?
The button, the main villain.
Okay.
Who's the button? He's stuck 10K.
Oh man, if he's stuck 10K, yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is, and you're 4,400 effective. What I was gonna say is, and I know you emailed this hand in, so I don't necessarily remember the river, is that I try to have a plan for this case. Is like he's betting half the size of the pot. It's 1,800, 675 for you to call. Some people would just say even it's just a fold, but if you stick in just like a random Jack X in his range and you're getting 3-1, it's probably pretty close. But I like to have a plan sometimes to bluff upfront spades here, because if you check call 675 and a spade comes in, and you think a button doesn't have a spade, and usually the button's not going to have a spade draw when he bets, because if you put yourself in this sort of hand reading, and not that you necessarily, people out-level themselves all the time. Like you don't always want to put yourself in the button's shoes, but I think that we can actually draw a parallel here, even if it was us. If we have a spade draw, right, and we're the button, and we call the flop, and then two people call behind us, aren't we taking a card a lot on the turn? Like I would say 80 to 90% of the spade draws are going to take a card on the turn if they're the button. I don't think they're betting 675 into three people. So he doesn't have many spade draws when he bets the turn because he would check behind with them. So if a spade comes and he just has a jack, it's going to be very hard for him to call. There's one other thing going on here, though, too. He could possibly have some strong hands that were slow played on the flop because he's next to act, although it's more unlikely because it's multi-way, but he doesn't necessarily... It's not like you bet the button called, the straddle called, and now we're over to the limper, and the limper is going to slow play like 2-pair or a set. You see what I'm saying? We wouldn't expect that from the limper as like the third overcaller on the flop, but he's first to call. So he might have some strong hands. Now, when you tell me he's stuck like 10K, then I start to think maybe I wouldn't bluff a spade. I don't know. What's the river? Yeah. What's the river?
Well, right. So before we get to the river, so, I was thinking like he probably has a jack minimum. Like, he's got it. Like if he had, I think he would take a card with anything else, and he's got a jack minimum. But he can have anything. But I was just thinking when he bets half pot, right? We need 4.5 to 1. Mm-hmm. So, and we're getting like 3 to 1 immediately, and like pretty deep. So with implied odds, I think that's basically with a straight draw, like not even looking at the overcards as being an out, like even if they're not, right? I think it's a pretty easy call, right? Just with the implied odds and the immediate odds we're getting, right? So I ended up calling, and it's funny you say that. The river is a spade, of course. It's a 5 of spades. So the river, so the pot now is 24.75, right? And the river is a 5 of spades, and so now in the river, the question is, so I paused and I was thinking that, well, basically, like, should we try to represent, spades, as you said? And I was thinking, like, well, does that make sense? And I look at my hand, and basically I have a draw. Like, so if I had a spade draw, I'd probably play it the same way, right? So I kind of have the exact hand that I can try to represent. But then, I don't have any spades in my hand, which kind of hurts us, I think, because, I mean, he can't have spades. I know what you said, he would take a card, but this guy is kind of a special guy. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, you kind of answered it already, I guess, but considering, the profile on the guy is stuck, huge, he probably has a jack most likely. But in situations like this, what do you typically do? You try to go for it, or you think it's not worth it?
I mean, I would like to have a plan some of the time to possibly try to do this, but I don't know if a guy who's stuck like 10,000 is going to be able to fold here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to fold. So, I mean, I think you sort of answered your own question a little bit, right? It's just one of these things where, I'd like to have a plan for possibly trying to bluff at the end here, but what did you end up doing?
So just real quick, if we do go for it, like, what should the sizing be? Like, should it be like a gigantic, if we try to, represent space, should we go like, I don't know, pot size, or like 2/3, 3/4 pot, or like if we do decide to represent, or what should the sizing be?
I mean, the pot is what, 2,400, and you've got
and we got like 3,400 left.
I mean, like I said, in theory, if you want to polarize yourself to a flush, you could just move all in, but that might look a little bit more like a bluff. And I don't know. I mean, I would try to make this look like value in some way. That might actually get the most, most.
Maybe 1,800, something like that?
Yeah, maybe 1,500 to 2,000, something like that. It's just really hard for you to really have just like ace king here. I mean, if I was on the button's perspective, that would be like, is this guy like basically bluffing here with ace king, something like that. So what'd you end up doing?
Yeah, I ended up just giving up. Because I just basically didn't have the balls to try to bluff a guy who stuck 10K and showed propensity to call with anything. So I just checked, and he quickly checked back Jack 9 offsuit, no spades.
Oh, so wow, Jack 9 offsuit.
Yeah.
So do you think you would have gotten it through?
I mean, I don't know. Like, let me put it this way. Like, if he wasn't stuck, I think I may have, because he's, but just because he was stuck so much, how it is, like, all right, I'm stuck 10K, here's 2 more, just take it, show me, like, they just call because whatever, what's 2 more when I'm stuck 10? Like, the logic doesn't apply sometimes in those cases. They're not thinking in terms of the hand reading, but just like, whatever, if I'm losing, here's more. So, like, I've done that in the past, and, like, versus the wrong guy, like, who's stuck, and it usually never goes through. So I was like, I don't think I can pull the trigger. I couldn't pull the trigger. So, but obviously, look at his hand, like, he can't beat almost anything, right?
Yeah. Anyways, no, I appreciate the call, Gene. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call-in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.